There comes a moment in life that feels like a secret doorway. It does not appear in school books. It does not get marked on calendars. No one warns you that it is coming. Yet when it arrives, it changes everything you thought you knew about who you are. For many, that moment reveals itself around the age of 60. Outwardly, nothing appears too different. The body is a little slower, perhaps less agile. The face carries lines of experience. The world expects you to live quietly, as if life is winding down. But inside, something extraordinary begins to stir. Here is the truth no one dares to whisper aloud. 60 is not the beginning of decline. It is the beginning of unveiling. Before we dive in, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to see how far this conversation is reaching. Now, let us step inside this hidden season of life. Imagine standing at the edge of your own story and realizing that the goals which once lit a fire inside of you no longer hold the same weight. The need to impress others weakens. The desire to prove yourself feels hollow. Even the ambitions you held close for decades begin to loosen their grip. What is happening here? Why does the soul suddenly move in a direction no one warned you about? It is not retreat. It is not surrender. It is a quiet return, a return to something forgotten, something buried under years of striving, pleasing, and surviving. It is as though the soul finally says, "Enough. I want to be seen as I am." Carl Jung once described life in two great halves. The first, he said, is for building the ego, shaping an identity, creating stability in the outer world. But the second half belongs to the soul, and when that second half arrives, it comes not with fireworks but with silence, with clarity, with questions that pierce deeper than any applause or recognition ever could. Do you feel it? That strange distance that creeps in as you age. It is not depression. It is not disconnection. It is a new kind of sight. You begin to notice that what once felt urgent now feels staged, almost like a play you no longer want to perform in. You watch your own life, your marriage, your work, your choices, and realize much of it was about surviving, not truly living. And this realization stings. It rattles the ground beneath your feet, but there is also freedom hidden in that sting. Because when the soul tires of pretending, of carrying masks, of bowing to expectations, it does something radical. It begins to cleanse. At 60, this cleansing does not come with a broom or a bucket. It comes with honesty. Suddenly you feel a pull to release the old weight you carried, the need for constant approval, the resentment that was never spoken aloud, the fears that were passed down to you like invisible chains. The soul demands a clearing of space because something new is ready to enter. Have you ever felt this sudden shift? That moment where clothes no longer feel like you, where certain conversations bore you to tears, where the trophies of your past achievements feel strangely heavy instead of inspiring. That is not you being ungrateful. That is the soul asking to be real again. The strange thing about this stage of life is how beauty itself begins to change. No longer tied to appearances, beauty becomes something quieter, more piercing, more undeniable. It is in the woman who no longer apologizes for her truth. It is in the man who finally allows himself to cry without shame. It is in the strength that stops seeking permission to exist. This kind of beauty is dangerous in the best way. It unsettles those still trapped in the surface game of appearances. It confuses those who think power is youth and worth is measured by titles. Because the beauty that rises at 60 is rooted in freedom, in silence, in presence. It does not need approval to shine. I often think of this stage as a mirror turned inward. The soul begins to ask questions not about what you own, but about what remains untouched. What part of you still feels alive? What part of you refuses to be defined by anyone else's script? What would you do if you no longer needed to perform for love, for recognition, for survival? These are not questions of despair. They are seeds. And when you are brave enough to listen, those seeds sprout into something that feels like a second life. That is why so many people at this age suddenly long to return to study, to create, to travel, or to leave relationships that once seemed unshakable. It is not madness. It is not a midlife crisis. It is the soul reclaiming its own rhythm. The world may tell you that you are too old to begin again. But let me ask you this. When the soul is alive, can it ever truly be too late? Think of the shadow Jung spoke about. The part of us that we suppress in order to fit in. The dreams we set aside. The intuition we silenced. The child within us that still aches for freedom. At 60, that shadow does not stay hidden anymore. It rises not to punish you, but to give you a chance to integrate. To remind you that the missing pieces of yourself are still waiting for you. This is why women often bloom with new fire in their 60s. They stop asking for permission to take up space. They stop apologizing for their voice. They stop bending themselves into smaller versions of who they are. They embody a kind of beauty that is not polished but authentic. A beauty that radiates truth. And men too, if they allow themselves, begin to discover a different kind of strength. Not the strength of muscles or conquests, but the strength of presence, of wisdom, of vulnerability carried without shame. What society often paints as decline is actually a sacred acceleration. While the body slows, the soul accelerates. While the world insists you should shrink, the soul insists you expand. This is not the end of life. It is the unveiling of life's most profound chapter. Have you ever noticed how memories return stronger at this age? Childhood flashes, old loves, forgotten places. They do not come back only to haunt you. They come back so you can reorganize your story. Forgive where forgiveness is possible. Release what no longer serves, and hold close the lessons that shaped you. It is like the soul tidying its archives, so it can walk lighter. This is why silence feels so necessary at 60, not as loneliness but as a refuge. Silence becomes the space where you can hear yourself again, maybe for the first time in decades. It is in that silence that the soul whispers, "I have followed every demand. Now it is my turn." What if society has been wrong about aging all along? What if this season is not a closing door but the doorway home? I want you to pause and consider this. How many years have you lived for others? For your children, your family, your work, your community? How much of yourself did you set aside in order to fulfill those duties? And now when those duties loosen, what will you do with the space that remains? Will you fill it with fear, or will you allow the soul to step forward? Because here is the greatest truth: the soul does not age. It does not wrinkle. It does not grow tired of becoming. What ages is the mask. What fades is the illusion. What dies is the need to be anything other than who you really are. So when you reach 60, do not mistake the slowing of the body for the slowing of life. Life in its deepest sense is just beginning. There are moments when silence becomes the loudest sound in the world. Moments when the air between two people carries more weight than 1,000 conversations. You don't plan for it. You don't prepare for it. And yet when it arrives, it changes you in ways you can't quite explain. Imagine this. You're sitting across from someone you've only just met. The table is small, the space intimate, but what fills the distance between you is not chatter, not noise, not even nervousness. It's recognition, a strange, inexplicable recognition. You look at them and something stirs deep within you. A memory, though you know it isn't yours. A feeling, though you can't trace its origin. Your mind, trained to explain everything, tries to dismiss it. It's just chemistry, it's just chance, it's just human imagination. But your heart knows better. This isn't the randomness of the universe. This is the universe pulling two threads that were always meant to knot. And maybe it begins simply. A shared laugh at the same moment, when no joke has been told. A glance that lingers just a little too long, not out of curiosity but out of familiarity. Or perhaps it's the quiet comfort of unspoken words. The way you both sit there, not needing to fill the silence, not needing to perform, not needing to pretend. Most of life is filled with people who pass through us like shadows. Here, one moment, gone the next. But then, once in a while, a person arrives who feels like a mirror. Not the kind that reflects your face, but the kind that reflects your soul. You begin to notice it in the smallest details. The way their voice resonates like an echo of something you've heard before, though you know you haven't. The way they understand your pause, your hesitation, your half-said sentence, as if they've lived inside your silence. The way their presence doesn't feel like intrusion but like home. And in that moment you realize something profound. This is not about attraction. It's not about romance, at least not in the conventional sense. It's about connection. Raw, unfiltered, undeniable connection. You could call it fate. You could call it destiny. You could even call it coincidence. But whatever name you choose, you can't deny the weight of it. Because this isn't the kind of connection you chase. This is the kind that finds you. Think about it. How many people have you passed by in your life? On sidewalks, in crowded stations, in bustling streets? Thousands, maybe millions. All strangers. All with their own worlds, their own stories, their own lives. You pass by without noticing. You forget them the moment they're gone. But then one day, without warning, one of those strangers stops being a stranger. They look at you, and suddenly it's as if the rest of the world blurs. Their face doesn't just appear to you, it reminds you. Their presence doesn't just touch you, it awakens you. You realize that for reasons you can't articulate, you can't look away. And here's the most haunting part. It feels as if you've always known them. Not in this life, maybe. Not in the ways we measure time. But in a way that transcends explanation. As if your soul remembers what your mind has forgotten. It's the kind of moment that makes you believe in something larger than yourself. Larger than logic. Larger than chance. And in that moment everything shifts. Suddenly ordinary things feel extraordinary. The cafe you're sitting in isn't just a cafe anymore. It's a meeting place written into the script of your life long before you walked in. The cup of coffee in your hands isn't just a drink. It's a timestamp, a marker of the day everything quietly changed. You begin to notice their details with reverence. The way they tilt their head when they listen. The way their eyes light up when they speak about something they love. The rhythm of their breathing. The cadence of their laughter. The little pauses in their words, and it all feels so familiar. Too familiar. You start to wonder, have we been here before? Not here in this place, but here in this connection. It feels as if your souls have crossed paths long before your bodies ever did. Perhaps in dreams you've forgotten. Perhaps in lives you no longer remember. Perhaps in the spaces between heartbeats where time itself dissolves. This isn't something you can explain to anyone else. If you tried, they'd call it dramatic or naive or just infatuation. But you know better. You feel it. You feel it in your chest, in your bones, in the parts of you that words cannot reach. And here's the truth. The world doesn't give us many of these moments. Most of the time we live in routine. We wake, we work, we sleep, we repeat. Days blur, years pass, and everything begins to feel like background noise. But once in a while someone enters who breaks the noise. Someone who reminds you that you're alive. Someone who makes time stop, not with spectacle but with presence. And when it happens, you can't ignore it. Maybe they don't stay forever. Maybe their role in your story is brief, a single chapter in a book that keeps unfolding. But even then, they leave a mark that cannot be erased, because it isn't about the length of the connection. It's about the depth of it. And depth doesn't ask for time. Depth only asks for truth. So you sit there across from them, and for the first time in a long time, you stop running. You stop searching. You simply exist in the moment. And that moment feels eternal. It's as if the universe is whispering to you, pay attention. This matters, because not every connection is equal. Not every encounter is ordinary. Some are designed to awaken you. Some are meant to remind you of who you are and of what you've forgotten. And maybe, just maybe, this is one of them. You realize something profound. Life is not measured in years, or in days, or even in hours. It is measured in moments like these. Moments that defy reason. Moments that remind you of your humanity. Moments that remind you that you are more than flesh and bone. You are spirit, memory, connection. So you lean in just a little closer. You listen with your whole self, and for once you stop trying to explain it. You stop trying to label it. You stop trying to force it into the categories of human understanding. Instead, you simply let it be. And as you do, you realize this. What you're experiencing is rare, precious, sacred. Because in a world filled with billions of people, you've just collided with someone who feels like home. And no matter where the story goes from here, that single truth will remain: you didn't find them. They didn't find you. The universe found you both, and decided now was the time. And that changes everything.